serves on the Foreign Relations Committee. Back home in Wisconsin right now, Senator Johnson, we appreciate your time. Thank you.
Well, Peter, how are you doing?
I'm doing very well. Let me ask you, if I can, right off the bat, your thoughts about what we heard from the president today and how concerned perhaps you are about the actions that you have seen from the military leadership in Egypt at this time.
Well, Egypt is a tragic mess at the moment. You know, historically, the military has been the most respected institution in Egypt. It's the one institution that we have some certainly influence potentially over, but that influence is, being really shown to be pretty weak at this point in time. I think with that limited amount of influence, the statement by the president, the cancellation of the Bright Star military exercise was an appropriate action. I think his comments were appropriate. I think at this point in time, all America can really do is ask for restraint on both sides. Certainly keep our fingers crossed that the bloodshed will end, and that the military will respect human rights.
And if we wait and we keep our fingers crossed and we ask for restraint, I mean, U.S. officials, as we understand, until the very last minute before this crackdown, were reaching out to their counterparts in Egypt asking for that very restraint, but they were ignored. Right. So do we have any influence? Keeping fingers crossed doesn't seem like it's going to cut it anymore.
No, it's tragic. We don't have greater influence. About the only thing we have right now is the threat of cutting off military aid, which, quite honestly, a number of us in the Senate were willing to give the president the flexibility prior to the August recess. When we come back in September, if events don't improve dramatically, I don't think there's going to be any choice than to, basically force the hand of this administration and cut off military aid to Egypt.
Should he have made that call today? Should that have been the decision now?
Now, first of all, I don't think there's any reason to at this exact moment. I think potentially dangling that carrot still out there might provide some influence. But again, we're seeing that our influence in the region, not only just in Egypt, but across the world, because of, unfortunately, this administration's tendency to lead from behind or to follow, not exerting the type of American leadership. It's just not working out very well, and that's across the region. It's very unfortunate.
I want to get a sense from you. You say that you're satisfied with what the president said today, then what you think the alternative is. I know that it's a common phrase we hear from Republicans that the president's been leading from behind. What could he have done differently that you suggest in Egypt that this administration did not do properly, specifically?
Well, again, you have to talk about the entire region, and really from the start of this administration, when he embarked on his apology tour, when he did not offer even words of encouragement to the young people in Iran, canceling a missile defense shield, not establishing a status of force agreement in Iraq so we could at least prevent the Iranian overflights, that are supplying the slaughter in Syria. I mean, across the board, this president has not shown the type of leadership that, let's face it, around the region, those governments sometimes, talk about not wanting American leadership, but behind the scenes, they actually do understand that America, when we don't lead, it creates leadership vacuums and voids, and very bad things fill that void. And we're seeing that across the region. So, I mean, at this point in time, with the lack of influence we have over events, the president, basically his statement was about all we could really offer, and it's tragic.
Senator, you've been back home, had a chance to speak with some of your constituents right there. Based on the conversations, what you're hearing, what is going to drive the conversation here in Washington when Congress is back from its recess?
Well, I'll tell you what, the Wisconsinites certainly understand how dysfunctional Washington is. Again, they're incredibly disappointed that we are not coming to grips with our very severe debt and deficit issue. People are really concerned about the implementation of Obamacare across the board, whether you're talking about businesses, whether you're talking about city governments. Anybody that employs somebody that's going to have to grapple with the... Well, unfortunately, there's no way for us to defund Obamacare short of Harry Reid passing a bill in the Senate and President Obama signing it. Right. I don't think that's going to happen. So what conservatives need to do is we need to point out to the American public the rolling disaster that the implementation of Obamacare is going to be. And I think as Americans come to realize that, hopefully we will create the political pressure to repeal this bill once and for all. I really think that's probably our best shot at making sure that Obamacare never takes firm or permanent root.
And Senator, final question before I let you go. I want to end with a trip that you recently made to a state not too far from your own. I think they call it Iowa. Is 2016, as a presidential run a couple of years from now, something you're thinking about?
No, I went to Iowa because if we're going to really repeal Obamacare, if we're going to come to terms with our debt deficit issue, we need a majority of Republicans in the Senate to start passing good laws. And Iowa has a unique opportunity to send us an ally, a fiscal conservative, somebody that really realizes that we need to limit the size of the federal government, limit its debt and deficits. And so really, I just went there to offer whatever support I can to that effort.
Who is that person?
Pardon? Oh, from a standpoint of Republicans in Iowa, they're going to probably have a primary. I was certainly talking about the record of Bruce Braley, who apparently seems to be the Democratic Senate candidate. He's totally wrong on the issues. He's big supporter of Obamacare, big supporter of deficit spending. So we don't need Bruce Braley in the Senate. We need a fiscal conservative from Iowa.
We just thought you might be making some sort of presidential endorsement here 3 years out, which would be groundbreaking. We were going to let you do it if you liked. Senator Johnson, nice to visit with you. Thanks very much for your time.
Have a great day.
All right, thank you. At least 14 homes have been destroyed now.